Hey everybody, this is Abhimanyu Kaushik and you are listening to Textile Quest, a podcast series by TextConnect. So welcome guys to the second episode of this podcast series, Textile Quest, in which we'll cover all the innovations, news, articles in the textile, apparel and the fashion domain ranging from the 15th of July to the 31st of July. So in case you have missed out any article based on the textile, apparel and the fashion domain, don't you worry because Textile Quest will keep up to it. So let's start with the podcast, and there are quite a few articles, some interesting articles and news, but we'll start with a company that has been progressing a lot and is a household name in the textile industry. That is Indorama and its journey with spandex. So the knitting industry is performing well in India and encouraging growth trends are visible. This is according to Shailendra Vasudeva, the Chief Marketing Officer of Indorama India Private Limited. Indorama India is a part of Singapore-based Indorama Corporation that manufactures Invia, which is India's first made-in-India premium spandex fiber. Indorama India offers spandex products under the various brand names like Invia, Stolid, Snugfit that can cater to all possible applications of textiles, be it woven, knitting, warp knit fabric, circular knit fabric, elastic tapes, etc. Now, according to the executives from Indorama, they said that they are commissioning their third site at Baddi in Himachal Pradesh. The investment is around $50 million, which will give an additional capacity of 900 tons per month to the company. Now, the executives said that if we are looking at our growth in the last 5 years, it has been phenomenal. They have increased their capacity to almost 3 times, from 500 tons a month to almost 1400 tons per month now. They are planning to start a new project in January-February next year, and it would not be a typical waste recycling, but a different kind of a process where they'll add value to the waste. The process is planned such that the recycled spandex has performance parameters in line with the requirement of the brands. That is, currently they're considering 2 sources, post-industrial as well as pre-consumer waste for the production of this recycled spandex. Now for Invia currently, South Gujarat is a major market, and for the ease of distribution, the company has started a warehouse in Surat. That was the journey of Indorama and spandex. And coming to the next article that says the stability in North India's cotton prices is seen as a positive sign. Now North India's cotton yarn market steadied, which has been seen as the first indication for better sentiments. Now Delhi, Ludhiana, Panipat noted stability in the prices of cotton yarn. Traders are also expecting support to cotton and cotton yarn prices from the reports of crop damage due to rains. Now, a trader from Ludhiana told Fiber to Fashion, the magazine, that cotton yarn demand was still weak, but the prices remain stable. The market can get support if the crop damage reports add some concerns for the supply. There was expectations that demand will improve in the last week of this month, that is, end of July or the first week of August. The prices of recycled yarn of various counts and varieties remained steady amid the weak demand in Panipat market, but a local trader said that the demand did not improve, but recycled yarn prices were bottomed out, which can encourage buyers. Now coming down to the next article. Now we are all aware of the Sri Lanka's economic crisis that has left the country in devastations, but there's a brighter side to it. In spite of the defying crisis, Sri Lanka's garment exports has gone up by 16.7% in January to May 2022. Yes, Sri Lanka has registered an impressive growth in the garment and textile export in the first 5 months of this year, despite the ongoing economic and the political crisis. Now, garment exports from this island nation stood at around $2,206.6 million in January to May 2022, registering an increase of 16.7% over exports of $1,890 million in the same period of previous year. Now, these are according to the statistics that are released by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan textile exports increased by 17.9% during the same period. Now, textiles and garments export accounted for around 56.4% of the all industrial exports from Sri Lanka during the 5-month period of this year. Now, this is what shows that how a backbone textile industry has proven in Sri Lanka's export market this year in 2022, and hopefully it takes Sri Lanka out of this economic crisis that the country has been struggling from since a long time now. Now the next article says that India is importing textile from China, which is adding to the trade deficit. Yes, India's trade deficit with China continues to widen in the current fiscal year, that is similar to 2021 and 2022. India's imports from China are increasing, but exports are quite lower and declining, which is causing a higher trade deficit. Now, in the financial year 2021-2022, India's trade deficit with China was recorded at around $72.9 billion. In May 2022, India exported goods worth $1.6 billion to China, over 25% lower than $2.1 billion in May 2021. On the other hand, India's imports recorded a growth of 5.47% in May compared to the same month in the last year. But for the second straight year, India and China may cross a total trade figure of $100 billion. India's apparel imports from China registered continuous increase since February 2022 and reached at around 87.9 million in May 2022. Now you guys might be thinking that what impact has COVID had, or what impact has the military confrontation with China have on the Indian export market or import market. But yeah, it certainly dipped in the year 2020, but it jumped in the following year. That is, Indians couldn't withstand the losses, or they couldn't withstand the drift from the Chinese market. The imports stood at around 349 million in the first 5 months of 2022. So everything is back with China in terms of trade like how it was before COVID. Now the next article, a very interesting article, which says that if you wear second-hand jeans, you can save a lot of CO2 emission. Now I'll try to specify the word lot of. Even buying jeans can be extremely damaging to the environment, as the carbon dioxide emissions produced while manufacturing jeans owned by the adults in the UK is equivalent to flying a plane around the world 2,372 times, or a petrol car traveling more than 21 billion miles. However, buying a pair of second-hand jeans a year could reduce the emissions comparable to traveling 3 billion fewer miles. That is a whooping difference. Now, these staggering figures disclose the carbon footprint of making new jeans. According to the report by British non-profit organization Oxfam, the study was carried out by Oxfam to put a spotlight on the effects of fashion consumption on the planet before the launch of its second-hand September campaign. In the UK, women own 7 pairs of jeans and men 6 on average, but each pair produces a carbon footprint. Now, research reveals that if all the jeans in UK were bought brand new, the carbon footprint will be equal to the emissions released by a coal-fired power station in 18 months. And that is a lot in terms of carbon footprint. So the next time you are buying jeans, you have to keep this in mind, or rather go for a second-hand pair of jeans if possible. Moving on to the next one, let us focus on why is there an urgent need for textile circularity. Now, it is no longer a question of if the industry will adopt circular strategies, but how. Now, the latest IPCC report warns that without immediate and deep emissions reduction across all sectors in the next 3 years, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is beyond reach. The quantity of clothing entering the market has expanded rapidly over the last decade. With 150 billion new clothing items produced annually, currently the volume of clothing produced and discarded is growing at a faster rate than recycling facilities can process. In addition to that, highly recyclable or compostable materials only represent a nominal share of the overall market. Textile waste is actually a global issue. Beyond textile waste, the industry is also struggling to keep its emissions in check. Notably, the fashion industry is the third highest producer of greenhouse gases. Now, Qantas estimates that the apparel market makes up to 6.7% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, rising to 8% when footwear is included, which is almost 4 times the estimated emissions of the airline sector. The fashion industry is failing to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target outlined in the United Nations Paris Agreement by a staggering 50%, placing the industry on a 3 degrees Celsius trajectory. That is, if we continue doing what we are right now, the global warming rise in the temperature would result at a 3 degrees Celsius rise, which is way higher than the 1.5 degrees Celsius projected. According to the authors of the report, when it comes to sustainability, about 1/3 of the fashion industry has yet to take action at all. Now, with total clothing sales expected to reach a 160 million tons by 2050, more than 3 times today's amount, the urgency for change towards sustainability is our only obvious choice. Now, moving on to the next one, which announces the Recycled Textile Federation is formed in India. That's a good news that more than 200 small mills involved in the recycling of cotton waste into yarn and fabrics across Tamil Nadu have jointly formed a Recycled Textile Federation in Coimbatore. The newly formed federation plans to identify markets in different parts of the world and direct its members to cater to the places that need their products and services. Presently, there are around 230 members in the federation. There are 400 mills in Tamil Nadu that process or recycle cotton waste and PET bottles into yarn and garments. With Coimbatore and Tirupur having 180 such units, the federation will strive to bring them together and function as an entity that would represent their common needs and demands and will also go for national and international coordination. Now, putting some spotlight over some bad news for the exporters, as the exporters' order books began to shrink due to low demand. Order books of Indian exporters have begun shrinking as inventories pile up in the key export destination on low demand. Order books have shrunk for around 15 to 20% in leather and footwear, while in yarn volumes have witnessed a sharp 70% fall. The reason being high inflation in the US and the European Union. Clients in the US are doing cautious buying as their budgets are tight due to the high interest rates, and exports of yarn, fabric, made-ups and handloom products have shrunk to around 22.54% in June. Slow retail sales in the US and the European Union have delayed the order for ready-made garments. While yarn exports have come to a standstill, exporters said, industry representatives said that the pressure on the order books due to low demand will also compress prices in the future. According to Rakesh Kumar, the Director General, Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts, there are excess quantities and orders are slow, but we expect them to recover in the coming quarters. Demand from Eastern Europe, Latin America, Middle East is likely, and the FTAs with the UAE and Australia will benefit us, Kumar said. Now, coming down to the last article of our podcast today, which will tell us why technical textiles is the way forward for the textile industry. Now, as the world moves forwards with the narrative of creating more value, goods get highly commercialized and providing functionality is the primary focus. Similarly, in the World War era, in the early 20th century, America produced the first ever technical textile, nylon, to meet the demand for high durability in garments. Since technical textiles have been gaining popularity across various industries, they account for about 14% of the global textile apparel market. The technical textile industry in India has penetrated into home, medical, industrial, and automobile domains majorly, while other domains like geotech, oecotech, etc. are catching traction. India contributes about 10% to the global technical textile market and accounts for major production and export of PackTech, a branch of technical textile focused on packaging material derived from jute majorly. The current leading producers in the technical textile segment are the China, USA, Japan, Germany. However, most of the consumption happens in Asia Pacific. Considering the major manufacturing hubs that lie in the area of India, China, Japan, South Korea, and Vietnam. Other consumers include the European Union, Germany and France due to their global contribution in the field of defense and automobile, and the USA. Indian government envisions India as the world's manufacturing hub, considering its geographical, demographical, and economical advantages. To make the most out of them and boost the existing 15% share of manufacturing in the Indian GDP, the government has taken up initiatives worth Rs $35 billion to add manufacturing facilities across various domains and develop newer regions of manufacturing across India. A dedicated investment of around 2.6 billion to the synthetic fibers, the core of technical textiles, is approved as well. So this was it from my side in the Textile Quest, a podcast series by TextConnect. I hope you have got the snippets and the updates regarding the Indian and the international textile, apparel and fashion industry. We'll be back with the third episode on the 15th of August, keeping you updated with the industry in general.